Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. This is the continuation of the previous video where I showed you how to use browser sync to improve the situation while developing a publish site. Today we're gonna focus on working with the style of the website, with the CSS of the website, and how to improve that to make it live reload and in a gorgeous manner. It solves so many things, and I think, yes, you're adding a dependency, but it's so worth it. So let's take a look. First of all, let's show what's the current limitation if you basically are developing your website just with the out-of-the-box generated publish site. The idea is that imagine that you want to change the background colors of this, like something simple. So maybe we could change the background of the wrapper. Okay. So what you want is an easy way to do this. But unfortunately, there is no easy way of doing that with the default setup. So what you want to do is basically have a different path for the CSS than the default that comes with publish with the foundation theme, because that's on the publish library and you don't have access to that. You can see that this theme uses a factory that it's private. So we cannot even basically rewrite this changing the path. What you can do instead is basically just copy the entire theme locally and start developing that. So you copy the file here and let's make a folder. We call it theme and we make a folder to simplify a little bit the structure because we are going to be doing some changes in there. But you also need the resource for the style. There you go. So now that we have our own copy of the file and our own copy of the CSS, and what we need to do now is change this for my foundation. What we need to do is actually change this style here to use the one that we want. Ideally, you want to make your own head that probably use internally the one from publish, but that you actually can reuse it everywhere without having to specify all the parameters every single time. For now though, let's just make it here, and on the strings it should be this. And you can see now that the CSS is pointing to the correct place. So if we actually do some change here, like I don't know, changing the header to something huge, we should actually see the change, which it's correctly, and it will. Here you see now the flow. Like if you are modifying this website, okay, let's put it back to 2, you don't see the change immediately. You actually need to run and recompile, and then you see the change there, okay, which is not a big deal because we already have this browser sync from the previous video. The problem is when this step, this generation, starts taking time. When you have a lot of posts or you have many pages or complexity on the generation of the website, it starts taking a lot of time. And for something like changing colors that I want to see quickly, both of them and stuff like that, it gets quite slow. We could actually go to the styles and change the style here on the fly, okay? So for example, if we go to the output, to here, we have a copy of the CSS file, and if we, for example, do the same change again because it's easy to see, we change it here and we can see it immediately. The problem with that is that it's really dangerous because you're touching the output file, which is a copy of the original one that you have on your resources. If you're doing changes here and you, for some reason, forget that you're doing this and you run and you recompile and rebuild, there you go, you lost your changes, which is quite annoying. But it's basically copying over your CSS file to the output, which is really tricky to remember. If you make a mistake, you lose all your changes. So I don't recommend going directly to the output file and doing changes there, because you need to always remember that situation you are in. So the solution that it works best for me is actually don't use the CSS file directly. So we're going to switch gears and see how we can actually solve this and use Sass, which is a CSS preprocessor to actually solve this situation. So the first thing you need to do is go to the Sass website and install Sass. There are many ways to install it. I recommend just installing the command line tool, because in that way you don't have to depend again on Node or anything like that. I use Brew to install it, but you can use your favorite solution. The important thing is that you need to have Sass installed locally. The next thing is actually integrating Sass into our project, and thankfully there is a plugin already developed for Publish to actually solve this problem. So you can go to the Publish GitHub page, click on the community publics link, which links to a GitHub topic with some plugins that the community have been developing, and you can see this Sass Publish plugin. So you're gonna follow these instructions. There are instructions here in terms of how to install Sass and make it available as a library to your repo. And when that is done, you can actually copy this package URL here, go to your project, include it on your dependencies, give Xcode some time so it resolves and it pulls it, and never forget to add the dependency to your target. Now we have it here, it's all green, we should be able to compile, so that's going good. Now we go to the main and we can actually import the Sass plugin, and it works. So some things that you need to change is, well, you need to write this properly with the plugins here. It was confusing for me because I was following this, but this basically assumes that you are writing your own pipeline entirely, which is what I use on my website, so that's why I think I've never used this kind of method here, but this works too. If you want to keep the default pipeline, that's all right too. Then you need to make sure that the path is correct, so it's sources, your website, because on the Swift Package Manager you have a folder with a module name, and then theme, which is the folder we created, and style.sass. There you go, and that's fine. And then the output file, style CSS. That means that we need to do some more changes. Here, we cannot use this anymore. Basically, the resource path for the theme is actually nothing, because there is no resource with the theme itself, because the Sass plugin is gonna take care of copying that over on the proper location. So that's one thing that we don't need anymore. And the other thing is that we can change this back to what it was, to style CSS. So we actually can get rid of this, and it's nice because we don't need a custom head anymore. So now I think everything should be working, and we can run this and we shouldn't see any error. It got generated correctly. Now if we refresh, we of course see that there is no CSS at all, because of course our Sass file is completely empty. Now it's when you can go here and start writing the Sass that you want. What I recommend you do, if you are not an expert on CSS and Sass and all that stuff, is that I personally prefer to use SCSS, which it's the same, but it allows me to basically copy the CSS from here and let's compile to make sure all this works. So now you have the original CSS. You can just keep it at that and just write CSS and use Sass just for the next step I'm going to show you now, which is the live reloading. But if you actually want, you can actually start using the fancy things from Sass just with a syntax that it's closer to a normal CSS, which is what I personally I prefer. The final step is actually to start the Sass server in order to detect changes on this file and recompile on the fly. So actually this plugin that we installed here, it's just gonna be used for when you deploy the website or when you build from Xcode. It's gonna run this part here and that's gonna generate the file. But for the rest of the time, we can actually have this server here open that takes care of doing it immediately live. So what we can do is say sources, then we go to our project folder, then we go to the theme. It's basically the same path that we're putting here, and we specify where the Sass is. After this, we specify the output styles CSS, which is where it should go. So now Sass is watching for changes, and we are free to go here. Same change as before, the silly change of increasing this a lot. And we go here, this basically recompiles, creates a new CSS that is part of the output, and because it's part of the output, the browser sync sees it and automatically refreshes the website, and we have the loop there immediately. And now you can see how this is super quick. We can say, oh no, that's too small, or let's say color red because I want to be super fancy. There you go. So now you can just develop CSS, immediately see the changes on the website. You can actually change things from the foundation theme if you want, because you can actually now have access to it and modify it and make it your own, which is what you should be doing to make your website unique. So that's it for this video. Remember that there is a previous video where I show you how to go through installing this browser sync to have live reloading when the output changes. And now in this video, we went through, moved the foundation theme to start developing it ourselves and improving it and make it unique for our own website. And then we switch to use Sass to have live reloading of the CSS and the stats, which is something that I think it needs absolutely live reloading situation. So that's what I showed you. It's not perfect. Ideally, all of this will come like probably out of the box, as it happens in other static generators, but maybe in the future it is. Meanwhile, we have these two techniques that are super useful and I've been using for a while now. And that's it for today. If you enjoyed this content, please like the video and subscribe for more like this. See you all next time.